What is going on, everyone? Ad-free shows, doing a little review show for AEW Full Gear. I'm coming to you from a candid little hotel room here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm Jon Alba. Lauren Yaffee, my go-to girl here on ad-free shows. We laid down a great preview show that you can check out in the archives on adfreeshows.com and also on afsonyoutube.com. And you can see how well we did with our Full Gear picks. And you liked them so much, we brought him back again. Connor Casey from comicbook.com. He lent us a big hand last week with the WWE releases. I thought he had some great insight, and he's hopping on to talk about AEW Full Gear. Guys, how are you? Is everyone as tired as I am, or is that just me right now as we record this?
I think it's just you.
Okay,
happy to be here, though, and glad to see you, Connor.
Glad to see you too. Yeah, John, I can't imagine being as tired as you going through how you've explained it so far and how you are downing that monster right now. But I am looking forward to talking about something much happier than when I was on here last time.
Hey, I'm not complaining. Long nights are part of what makes the pro wrestling industry so much fun. It was a packed house at the Target Center in Minneapolis on Saturday night for AEW Full Gear. And it was a show that produced a moment that I think a lot of people are going to remember for a long time at the end of the day. Did the show, I guess, right out of the bat, did the show meet the expectations that each of you had individually set for it? What do you say, Lauren?
Absolutely. I thought this was a really, really good show. I thought we had many really strong matches. And of course, it culminates in that final moment, the exchanging of the title to Hangman Adam Page, which has been long awaited. So I think it was a really good show.
Connor?
Yes and no. I thought going in, this had the potential to outperform All Out, which, being there, John, alongside me, that's a high bar to hit. It didn't in some ways. I thought it went on a bit long, and I felt, especially in the middle, you could feel that length. I felt like some of these matches, I'm looking at the times for them right now, you could have shaved off 10 minutes off that Minneapolis street fight or do something different with it after earlier in the night having a similar looking match with the Falls Count Anywhere match. But the highs, they hit the high notes when it counted. That opener was fantastic. Punk versus Kingston was as violent as I hoped it would be. And I really hope that's not the end of it between those two. And then the main event was everything I hoped it would be. And you talk about moments that people will remember. I still argue this is going to be the signature storyline for the first decade of this company. And in order for that to be a reality, tonight or last night had to hit. Right. It did.
Yeah, I'm actually with you entirely on that, Connor. I felt like there was some stuff that I had higher hopes for that maybe didn't hit quite as well as I wanted them to, but the stuff that needed to stick the landing absolutely did. And when people go back and look at shows, they're going to remember them for those moments ultimately. And I think that when you combine the intensity of Kingston and Punk and the straight look into the future that we got with Darby Allin and MJF, and then the moment at the end of the night with Hangman Page finally receiving his crown as the AEW World Champion. AEW delivered big in that sense on a card that I felt, and I'm with you entirely, Connor, and looking at the match times, not a single match went less than 11 minutes on this card. That is a long show, and that's not even including the pre-show. Let's get into it right now. Hikaru Shida and Thunder Rosa defeated Jamie Hayter in Nyla Rose in the buy-in, 12 minutes and 32 seconds. A good opportunity for the baby faces to get some shine here. Lauren, what did you think of the ladies in this effort as they continue to try and further the storyline with the TBS championship?
I think it achieved what it needed to achieve. I was, a little annoyed. I hate to say it, a little annoyed to see the Serena Deeb and the Vicky Guerrero situations going on to the side. I really think these are powerful women who could have had a match without additional complications. but it is what it is, and that's what we got, and that's okay. I do want to point out another thing while I'm on this soapbox, though. Aside from the women's championship match, we had 4 really kick-ass women all in the same match, not on the main card.
Mhm.
We got the one women's match on the main card. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but those are my comments on this one. Connor, do you have any opinions on this match?
Well, personally, I think Serena Deeb should be on every show because
I
she
agree.
is Bret Hart meets a yoga mom, and it's fantastic.
That sounds like a t-shirt right there.
Exactly. And
She's gotta get
she's
on
even got
that.
the black and pink color scheme to go with it. So she knows what she's doing. But no, the opener was fun. They're just furthering things along for the TBS title. And Lauren, you nailed it. This show could have used another women's match on the main card. We easily could have shaved something off of that middle part and just gone, hey, let's have one of the tournament matches, since we're putting those on every Dynamite.
Connor, I'll tell you what, I could not believe that there was not a TBS tournament match on this card. I was blown away by that when I realized that we were getting so close to the build to this pay-per-view, and I was like, that they're really only doing this on TV. And I understand it's a TV championship, so
Right.
even though it's a TV championship that's defended on pay-per-view frequently, but there were definitely things that could have been burned off elsewhere. The Super Click versus Jurassic Express match could have absolutely been done on TV rather than this pay-per-view. So I'm with you guys entirely on that. What do you guys make of the reception for the baby faces here? Because I was paying a lot of close attention to that, and it felt like Thunder Rosa. She's someone that she's been showcased in these big spots, but I just hope you don't lose the lightning in a bottle, no pun intended, because she is so popular and people want to see her featured on this program.
Connor, I'll let you take that one.
Okay, yeah, I think Rosa, they're just keeping her on the heating plate until we run back Rosa Baker too.
That's what we were talking about.
I do think that is when the title changes hands. So they're just kind of keeping her, they're keeping her out in the public eye until then, but don't expect anything too substantial.
Agreed. I actually, the other day, John, when we did our predictions, I mentioned that I don't expect Thunder Rosa to lose this match. And I really meant that. I expected her to be the reason the match was won. And for that not to be the case, that was an interesting tidbit for me. So I enjoyed that.
I love Sheeta, though. Sheeta's so great. She's a great live wrestler. And I know Absolutely. You've seen her, Connor, too, live. She really, in my opinion, she connects very well. And I hope that they continue to give her a little bit of juice here, as that Nyla Rose program they've had with her has been a long one. So it's one of the longer women's feuds in the company. So take that for what it will. What did we get first here, Lauren? How do we get this main card kicked off?
Well, first we saw a visit with Tony Schiavone and Orange Cassidy.
Yeah, did you freak out over that one?
We find out that Orange Cassidy has chosen his partner for Wednesday's match against the Butcher and the Blade, and we later confirmed that it is Tomohiro Ishii. So that was pretty
cool. I'm very happy.
Really cool to see that. And I like the way that they tucked that into the show. That was fun for me. Any thoughts on this one?
It's awesome. I mean, Tomohiro Ishii is one of the best pro wrestlers in the world. And to see him on free television on Dynamite this coming week is pretty wild, isn't it, Connor?
Oh, he's the Stone Pitbull. You know something crazy is going to happen. I love it.
And they actually talked about in the post-show press conference, Tony Khan said that this is the Butcher's dream match, is facing Tomohiro Ishii. So that's got to be a really cool feather in the cap for him as well.
It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I think this coming Dynamite is going to be, it's going to blow all of our minds. But first, we had MJF meeting Darby Allin for the opening match of the main card. And even though we were both wrong, John, about which match would open the card, I think this was a good choice. They really brought the energy. Both of these guys had a lot going on. The early knee injury in this match to MJF would prove to cause him some problems later down the road. However, Wardlow and Shawn Spears could not bring any trouble to this match. So that was fun to see Sting kind of handle business on the ramp with that. I loved it. MJF angling for the disqualification win with the skateboard bit there towards the end of the match. I enjoyed that only to see him pull the ultimate heel move, grab that ring out of his trunks, and take care of business. Despite this loss, though, I think it was a very solid showing for Darby Allin.
Yeah, I'd say so. Connor, I'll let you get your thoughts in on this, but I will say I was surprised. 22 minutes for this one.
It went just as long as I hoped it would.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot to like about this one. I think this was the first time I can recall Max selling an injury, despite being the heel. It's a rare combination to see, especially from him, because he often tries to give off this air of invincibility right up until it smacks him in the face. The finish is what it is. It's a MJF win, so it's not going to be completely clean. I like that they did call back to the whole headlock takeover thing that they kept doing it throughout the match. You're kind of like, is he going to catch him with one of these? Because he might.
I've got a good note on this. Keep going.
But this is very much a showcase of 3 years from now, if this is the main event of Full Gear for the World Championship, you'll hear no complaints from me.
That's what I was saying, that it's cool to say. I remember I was there when they opened up Full Gear, because a few years from now, I do think we'll be saying that where these are two of the pillars here in AEW. And I was surprised by how much time they got. I did not expect this match to go 22 minutes, especially as the opener. I'm not upset about it. I thought they had great chemistry. This was the most wrestling we've ever seen out of Max in a match, and that includes the Jungle Boy match, because a lot of that was heat. This was
longer than the
great.
Sammy match from Dynamite a few months
back.
No,
I'm saying the most not time-wise. This is the most wrestling we got out of Max. A lot of his matches are getting heat. This was like back and forth, kind of what you said, selling the knee, like a lot of back and forth wrestling. And I couldn't help but just smile ear to ear, because the finish for this match was a direct callback to a match they had in Limitless Wrestling, where it was a side headlock takeover, except instead of the ring, he didn't have the ring. He did a low blow. So he low blow, side headlock takeover, 1, 2, 3. Whereas this, it was the ring, side headlock takeover, 1, 2, 3. So I might have been the only person in the building that knew that reference. But when they said at the beginning of the match, the man who can beat Darby Allin via side headlock takeover, I said, oh my God, they're going to bring this thing full circle. And I was so excited. I thought their chemistry was outstanding. What do you think, Lauren?
I agree. Like I said, I really enjoyed this match. And thank you for bringing that up. I had no idea, but I do recall now, as MJF came out to the ring and he kind of got Justin Roberts in the corner and made him announce him again. That makes sense to me now. So thank you for sharing.
Great story. And it's that nuanced, layered storytelling that AEW has earned goodwill with a lot of fans on, because they do pay stuff off like that. And Bryan Danielson talked about that in his press conference, where he said in AEW, people are taught to pay attention to the stories told in the ring rather than the stories told out of the ring.
Yeah.
I think that's
that. Let me ask you both this, because we all have a world championship reign for Max, kind of etched in stone right now. It's just a matter of when. For me, this match kind of put the germ of an idea in there that Darby needs to be the one that ends that reign when it does happen. How do you feel about that?
You might have just booked their next 5 years of TV for all you know, Connor,
Yeah, I love it. Don't mind it at all.
I think it's that fight forever syndrome. And I mean, maybe it's Jungle Boy, maybe it's Darby. There's so many possibilities, right?
And also, now that they've introduced the pillars of AEW, we need that 4-way.
Sure. And it should be a number one contenders match at some point. And I think that would be really cool. I would be remiss, by the way, if I didn't bring up before the show Dante Martin getting some more shine in front of that crowd. And he got press conference as well, even though he wasn't on the card. So I think that says quite a bit about how they feel about Dante Martin and this whole story of all these different teams pursuing him. That says quite a bit.
I'm nervous for his brother, though. Like, you're watching your brother get all of this shine while you were on the shelf. And maybe that's the story, but I hope it's not just a matter of, hey, we found the star among the two and you're kind of left by the wayside. I hope that didn't happen.
Dante said last night that his goal is 5 years from now, within the next 5 years, to be tag team champions with Darius. So let's hope the next top flight is awesome. So yeah. All right, what do we got next, Lauren? You got to remind me. My brain is mumbo jumbo here.
Up next, we had the much anticipated fight between the Lucha Brothers and FTR fighting for those tag team titles. As good of a match as this one was, it wasn't up to my standard that I had set in my own mind, and that's my mistake.
Both you and I thought this was going to open the show.
Yeah, I had super high expectations for this one, and I think it's partly because of how good the previous match was that this was a little bit of a letdown, and this is definitely one of the ones that could have been a heck of a lot shorter than it was. We did get some of those high-flying lucha moves. I was feeling some Eddie Guerrero spirit in here. We got the classic heel stuff as well, so this was a really fun match. The green mask switcheroo, a little cheesy for me. John, I'm sure you're going to pull something out of your back pocket and enlighten me as to why there was more to it than what I saw, but good match, solid match.
How'd this finish come off on TV, Connor?
Not great. The commentary team immediately kept pointing out that, hey, that's Cash under the mask. You can see the hair. This is one of those times where AEW usually doesn't have a finish that immediately sets up the rematch. And I wasn't aware that they've already got their next match set up for Triple Mania next month. So this basically just felt like a carryover into that, which you usually don't get from AEW pay-per-view matches. So a little bit of a downer on that.
I will tell you this. The finish did not connect live at all. I didn't even realize what was happening. It totally, I couldn't really get a great view of it from where I was. So I just saw one of the FTR members with a mask on and he got pinned. And it took me a good 5 minutes to put the correlation together that, he wasn't the legal man. And that's what it was. So that's such an old school pro wrestling story to tell. Hello, FTR. That's what they do. They tell old school stories here, right?
Right.
It just was something that I think kind of didn't connect with the live crowd. Now, the action in this I thought was very good. I think FTR, as we talk about ad nauseum, is just unreal. They are unreal storytellers, and they are a great foil to the Lucha Brothers. Finish just felt a little flat. I will say, whenever anyone did an Eddie Guerrero tribute on this show, that was a big time pop for the crowd. So definitely cool coming from the Lucha Brothers. That's how I felt about it, Lauren. Honestly, I thought it was a good idea with the finish, but the execution wasn't there for me.
Yeah, same. And I got a front row seat to it all right there ringside with the cameras. And it just didn't, obviously I saw what was happening, but whatever, didn't pop me. It wasn't exciting.
And I think that's why it wasn't the opener, because they knew they were going to go with that convoluted finish, and that convoluted finish as the opener would not have worked.
Honestly, give me the convoluted finish about 10 minutes earlier, and let's move on to Bryan Danielson and Miro.
Let's move on to Bryan Danielson and Miro. So this one, 20 minutes and 6 seconds. Bryan Danielson is now the number one contender for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. Connor, I'm not going to lie to you. This match did not connect with me in the way that I was hoping it to. And it was long, and Miro looked good. His physique is so impressive. He is in the best shape of his life right now. So is Bryan. But Miro looks like a freaking superstar. But something didn't connect until the final 5 minutes of this 20-minute match for me. And I don't really know what it was. What do you think?
I think that's appropriate. I was about to come at you with the whole Miro's God is going to come and find you in that hotel room, John.
True.
But no, I think that's right in that it didn't really kick into its top gear until those last 5 minutes. I'm not sure what it was. I don't know if it was them getting back into the old WWE habits of, hey, let's keep this slow and gradual until it's a final sprint. But those last 5 minutes were excellent.
Well, the lockup was very intense, and I kept thinking about that too at the beginning of the match. They're sizing each other up, then they big heavy lockup. It just something, and they got brutal. They were throwing each other into the barricade. Something didn't click, and I don't know what it was, because Bryan Danielson is my favorite pro wrestler in the world, and I've been amazed. And I asked him about this in the press conference, because he chokes him out at the end. That's something we haven't seen from Bryan in AEW. He chokes him out. And I said to him, how do you keep people on their toes with determining I can finish an opponent off in different ways? And he said the reality is the concept of a finishing move is still a relatively new phenomenon in pro wrestling, and he likes his pro wrestling based in reality, where in a real fight it can end a multitude of ways. And I said, okay, I get that. I like that a lot, but something didn't mesh with me here. How'd you?
Also, something wonderfully poetic about him winning with a guillotine after his last match in WWE was against a guy whose specialty is the guillotine.
Yeah. Lauren, what'd you make of it?
I thought this was set up to be really a show of the size and strength of Miro versus technique with Bryan Danielson, who I now am going to really struggle not to call him Daniel Bryan because
that's okay. Connor called him Daniel in the All Out press conference, and Brian kiboshed it. Brian kiboshed it immediately.
Oh my goodness. What are you going to do? No, so I really felt like we had like power versus technique. And it was set up to be a really great match. As you guys kind of hinted at, it fell flat at points. And I think that it's unsurprising to me entirely for Bryan Danielson to have been the one coming out on top. I figured he was going to be the title contender at the end of this one anyway, just for the fact that who brought Miro, right? This was supposed to be a Moxley match. So, nothing surprising here. Interesting match at the very end, as you guys said, but I think it could have been more.
I guess I wanted, and maybe this is like on me, I guess I wanted more of a David versus Goliath story in this, because we haven't seen David versus Goliath in a Bryan Danielson match in AEW yet.
And like Bryan's chest should have been beat red.
Right.
They should have just been chopping the bejesus out of him, and they didn't.
So yeah, and that's what I was hoping for. And the size of Miro should not be overlooked. And he's in the ring with Bryan Danielson, arguably one of the best technical wrestlers to do it recently, for sure. And they could have done more. They really could have.
Not that it was a bad match. It certainly wasn't a bad match, but I guess I had higher expectations coming out of it. So that got us to our Falls Count Anywhere match, which went 22 and a half minutes. Christian Cage and Jurassic Express defeated the Super Click. So, all right, Lauren, you and I talked about it on the preview show. We said, I said at least, that Jurassic Express needed this win and that Jungle Boy needed to be the one to get a big moment here. He gets the concerto win. I thought it was a really well-told story in this match. It was a lot of fun, maybe a little long. Like I said, maybe it could have been on a Dynamite instead of the pay-per-view. What'd you think?
I did not think this one ran long for me at all. And that's tough for me to say, because when thumbtacks and trash cans and chairs and all kinds of stuff starts coming out, I'm kind of good. I don't need all of that. But once we started seeing Christian Cage climbing up into the auditorium, the seating up here and jumping down, I thought every spot was interesting and exciting.
Yeah.
There were plenty of moments that it felt like we had some 2-on-1 action, which set up, as you said, really good, solid storytelling. So I appreciated that. Jungle Boy really, during the course of this match, became Jungle Man. First, when he did not take the chair.
How long have you been holding that one, Lauren?
There you go.
That was everyone's favorite Twitter line after the match. It's like, he is now Jungle Man.
No way. I thought I said that first. But yeah, and then at the very end, when he does finish the job and he seems just troubled on his face, but then we hear his goofy music come on and we're kind of like, oh, well, this is an interesting dichotomy, but it was fun. I enjoyed this match a lot.
Connor?
Yeah, with this one being on the same card as the Inner Circle American Top Team match.
Thank you. Yep, that's the point.
I thought, if you're going to have these both, make this the straight out of PWG 2017, just a sprint for 15 minutes. Don't get it on the outside of the ring. Don't rely so heavily on weapons. Just have it be insanity in the ring. But then they had that stipulation. You kind of have to go, well, they wouldn't do that if they weren't going to go into the crowd at some point. So that's how you get everyone just kind of lying dead on the entrance ramp at one point. If it had just been this match and the street fight had been either cinematic, which was what I kept pushing for, Mall of America's right down the street, just tape it there. Like, you love WCW references. Why not? Either have this be the only one on the show that's like this, or do something different with the Jericho match. The fact that you had both kind of detracted from both. I like I liked, Christian's in his finest bunkhouse brawl gear. That's always
Yes.
fun. He's whacking around the young whippersnappers with a trash can. I don't know why, but something about that image was hilarious to me. He's just like, you damn kids. Luchasaurus hitting a standing shooting star press.
Luchasaurus was unreal in this match. This was one of his best showings.
He is defying the laws of physics with how big he is with being able to move like that. And there's a certain guy that WWE just released that now I really want to see get into the ring with him. The ending is great. I keep expecting Christian to turn on Jungle Boy because they're doing kind of this mentorship, but JB's always kind of looking him at the side of his eye like, what's your real intention here? And they just keep putting them together, which I'm always kind of like, are we paying this off, or is he really just a mentor and we're not going to get, creepy bastard Christian, one last heel run out of him before this is all over? But I can't knock this finish for what happened elsewhere on the show, and the finish was great. So
I just had an issue with a street fight and a Falls Count Anywhere match, both being on the show, both being very long matches. They seem like they contradict each other, and the street fight had more rules than this Falls Count Anywhere match had, which was really weird.
I would argue that if we could only have one of the two matches, I want this one. And we'll talk about the other one later, of course, but
sure.
This is the winner for me.
I just thought having the two of them was a little bit of weapon fatigue for me, and I've come to expect great wrestling on AEW shows, so I would rather a great pro wrestling match than a couple really long matches with a whole bunch of weapons, because then the people in the street fight, they had to rematch, and they were different matches. I need to make that clear. They were definitely different matches, but I don't know. Good showing for Jurassic Express. Great storytelling. It isn't just amazing when people are like the Young Bucks can't tell stories. It's like, are you kidding? We watching the same program here? I just don't.
It's just all super kicks and tennis shoe references, John. I don't know what you're talking about.
If
no
the
storytelling
only
here.
If the only story they told was those fluorescent freaking pink pants, that was
and pink beards.
Yes. Jim Ross, you didn't hear this, John. JR and Shivani were so angry at Nick Jackson for having a purple mustache.
That's amazing. That's incredible. You'll have to hit up your boy Tony there, Lauren, and ask him for his raw and filtered thoughts on that for our ad-free shows, Top Guys and Top Gals here.
Yes. Speaking of Tony Schiavone, if I can't have Jungle Boy became Jungle Man, I do want to credit Tony with the line of the night during this match. He said, "Down goes the dinosaur." And I just loved that.
That's a t-shirt too. There you go. All right, Lauren, what do we have next here?
Up next, we had Arn Anderson versus Jose. But that was the best part of
the
match.
moment when Arn Anderson pulled out the Glock on Jose, that place went banana, as Pat Patterson would say.
I loved it. So we had Cody and Pac, of course. We have Malachi Black and Andrade El Idolo. This was the least exciting match of the night for me. Pac and Cody are just a really odd pairing. I don't like it. And I think it showed on TV that the crowd, and maybe I'm wrong, but this is my perception of it. The crowd
was not into Cody. Crowd was not into Cody here. After they've made some strides in the last few weeks to get a little more confidence behind him, this crowd was not into Cody. And I really thought, Connor, that he was going to turn him by the end of this match, but he did not. And they were not into it. They were into Pac, who picks up the win here. 16 minutes and 52 seconds. This match was way too long for what it had the purpose to be, especially since we've seen them all wrestle each other so much leading up to this. What do you think, Connor?
Of all the matches, this one easily could have been pulled off and put on a Dynamite or Rampage, and I would have had no complaints.
Sure.
Heck, it looked like they were setting up a 10-man tag leading into this, involving the Luchas and FTR also. I'm like, why do we need this tag match suddenly on the show? At the same time, though, it also felt like, hey, let's just flex how deep our roster is, because you take a guy like Pac, who, if you ask anybody, especially Cody, and say, like, who has the better roster? And Cody actually said this one time. I asked him, he said, who has the better roster in terms of just pure talent? And he goes, well, we have Pac on our roster, so we win. And Pac is nowhere near the world championship picture right now, and yet he can just stand there and be like, hey, I am one of the best wrestlers in the world. Deal with it. This could have been 8 minutes. This could have been on TV. This did not need to be what it was. I have given up on trying to figure out what they're doing with Cody. It feels like Tony is just as much in on the act as he is when you try and ask him about it. I noticed him in the post-match press conference kind of gave the same line that Cody is. And it's like, well, as long as the crowd is making noise, it's like, okay, when did we suddenly start booking all of these guys like they're John Cena? We don't do that with anybody else, but suddenly now is the policy of, hey, as long as they're giving a reaction.
Well, and I think that's why people
cares?
resent Cody, right? Because it's like that. And there are people in AEW who genuinely don't understand why the crowd is having this sentiment towards Cody. And
I can't tell if that's legitimate or if that's just part of the act too.
I from speaking with individuals, I'm pretty sure there are several, not saying everyone, but there are several who just don't get it. And I understand because on one hand, and Lauren, I know you'll back me up on this, like Cody is very selfless. He puts people over. He handles himself well in a public forum. He's the kind of guy you want representing your company, right? But there is this weird Codyverse thing where it's like, you know, the I am the savior of the universe kind of thing. And it's a weird dynamic sometimes.
That is exactly what I was going to say next. It almost feels like with this match, they had this great card worked out, and then they're like, okay, we got to get Cody in here somewhere. What are we going to do with Cody? And I'm starting to feel that way more and more. And like you said, John.
Oh no, she's turning, Connor. She's turning.
Anyone who's met Cody in person, like he's just the sweetest guy, and it's weird. I don't know if this is coming from him or if this is weird booking by Tony Khan or whatever the case. It's just it's odd to me, and I could have done without this match at all. But you know, here we have it on an otherwise really outstanding pay-per-view.
That it was. Getting us to the women here. Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, defeats Ty Conti by pinfall in 15 minutes, 24 seconds. They gave them some time, which was good. Less time than the Cody match, of course, but they got time. It was the perfect amount of time, in my opinion. This was the best match of Ty Conti's career. They had good chemistry together. Ty Conti was over in the building. People were into Ty Conti. There was legit split chance between these two, which if you've gone to any AEW event, you know Dr. Britt Baker is one of the most over acts in the building. And you even said it the other day, Lauren, that you think she's someone who could legitimately be face of the company one day. And I don't think you're necessarily wrong on that. Good match. They protected the hell out of Ty Conti here, and she's someone I expect to stick around in the main event scene in AEW. I thought this was a job well done across all fronts. What do you think, Lauren?
This was, as you kind of alluded to, as good of a match, I think, that Ty Conti could have had without winning. She was incredible. Britt hung in there with her. I can't believe I just said that. But in terms of this being maybe a litmus test, as you suggested the other day, for what we can expect to see out of Ty Conti, the best is certainly yet to come, but a strong showing for both ladies, especially, in my opinion, Ty Conti.
What do you think, Connor?
So this was the most obvious prediction of any match on the card, I felt. Like, I didn't see anybody think that Ty was going to win here. And I love that they kind of played into that expectation, and they said, okay, everyone expects the ending of this one. They know how it's going to end. Let's just try and break each other's neck before we do that. Because that air raid crash on the apron, my God.
Nuts.
No, I mean, these two went ham on each other, and I loved it. And you nailed it. It's the best Conti match, period. I think this, more than anything else, showed that, wow, that Performance Center really whiffed on her, because there was real talent there that just was not given the chance to shine. I really hope this is not the last time we see her in the title picture, but I don't think it's her time yet. Ask me again in 2 years, but that's fantastic all the way around.
She seems like the perfect first babyface challenger for a heel TBS champion. Like, I think her and Jade could tell a fun little story there too.
Oh, yeah.
So if Jade were to win that championship, so I really thought Ty played to the crowd well here. She looked like a superstar, which I think is super important. And it's tough to look like a superstar next to Dr. Britt Baker because Britt Baker is a superstar. She gives off that vibe.
She does, and she does that really well. And I like that you kind of hinted toward the TBS championship. I agree. And when I was watching this, I thought, she's not quite ready to dethrone the DMD, but I don't think we're done seeing good things out of Ty Conti, and she certainly deserves a title run of her own in some capacity. So we'll see what they do with the TBS championship situation.
All right. One of my favorite AEW matches ever, and I'm saying that definitively. CM Punk defeated Eddie Kingston in, I'm not even going to call it a match. This was a fight. This was an 11-minute fight that they had.
In fairness, Eddie knocked him the hell out before the bell rang. So
awesome.
I count this as a 1-1 draw.
Sure. Connor, you were saying how much you loved this bout. Go ahead. Go off.
Oh, it's the good stuff. This was violent. It was personal. Every hit, they kind of just looked back each other and said, "Oh, screw you," and just bashed him again. I love that Punk played into the whole "I'm the John Cena" in this equation now.
Quite literally and played into that.
And pulling out the moves there, like he's going to do the 5-knuckle shuffle. And he looks dead at the camera, just blood draining down. He's just like, I'm screwing with everybody right now. Like that was, you can't pay for that kind of stuff. That was awesome. And I loved how he kind of looked around there at the end during the elbows and knee strikes before he hit the GTS. He kind of looks around like they're booing me. That they're not liking this. How do I handle this situation? I don't know if this is the start of what some folks are hoping for, which is heel CM Punk. I don't know how long that's going to take for him to finally flip the switch on that one. But for what this was excellent. And it told the very personal and real story these two have.
Lauren?
Yeah, you said it was personal, Connor. John, you called this a fight. This was reminiscent to me of like when you hear of like a teenage boy calling out his dad for a fight on the front lawn. Ooh. That's what this felt like. It was very emotional. It was very personal. And it was respectful from dad, CM Punk, who offers the handshake at the end after kicking his son's ass. And Eddie, the little turd, just walks off from dad there. I don't think this feud I certainly hope this feud's not over. This has been so much fun. And, the moments of like blood running down Punk's face, Eddie Kingston smearing it on his, there's so much to work with here. And Connor, you hinted on all of that as well. So this was a good one. This was really, really good.
I just want to sidebar real quick since it's fresh on my mind now that you brought that up, Lauren, that it's like the father fighting the son. In the press conference, Bryan Danielson was talking about like the most important thing for him is to be a father. And the second most important thing for him is to like still be able to go. And he mentioned that when Buddy is 15, his son, he's going to be like 55. And he's like, and I want to be able to hook him and grapple him when I'm 55. Like I could do my own father. I was like, this is amazing. This guy is a freaking gem. But this match was perfect. It was perfect. I would not have changed a single thing about this. Lauren, I'll tell you what, they got me because for a hot second, when Eddie knocked out Punk at the beginning, before the bell rang, I was like, oh my God, Lauren might be right. They might not actually do this match because Lauren said that on our prediction show. She's like, this match won't even happen. And I was like, holy shit, can you imagine if they went in there and Eddie just knocked Punk out and that was it? Like, what a freaking reaction that would have been. And I would not have expected that in any way. But I'm much happier that we got the actual match itself because the match was outstanding. The dichotomy and between them and the evolution of Punk's character within this match was exceptional because we've seen happy to be here CM Punk for months now in AEW. And this Eddie Kingston just brought something out of him. Our own Derek Sabato tweeted earlier in the day, and I asked Punk about this in the press conference. He said, if there's anyone who can bring IWA Mid-South CM Punk out, it's Eddie Kingston. And Punk said, well, do I at least get paid tonight? Which I thought was good. But you saw it, and it was that Rock Hogan thing where the crowd was feeling Eddie. They were feeling Eddie. So Punk leaned into that. He talked about that in the press conference, saying, I can read crowds, and it wasn't the plan for me to do that, but I could see with how the direction was going that this is what I needed to do. So he did it. It was perfect. The John Cena thing, the moment he started doing shoulder tackles, I said to Denise Salcedo, who was behind me, and a couple others, I said, oh, he's about to do John Cena. And then the moment oh my God, that place went so loud. And a little thing that he did too, I thought this was brilliant. The crowd's chanting Eddie, right? For Eddie Kingston. So Punk, just to egg them on a little bit, starts doing some Eddie Guerrero stuff. And he's like, the crowd thinks they're chanting for Eddie Kingston. I just start doing Eddie Guerrero stuff. It's just a small little thing that, sure, he comes off as a babyface by doing Eddie Guerrero stuff, but not respecting what the fans are chanting. I just love that so much. This was perfect. I wouldn't have changed a single thing about it. That's how much I love this. Which got us to our second to last match of the night, which was Dan Lambert steals Jon Alba's ring attire, and it's American Top Team against the Inner Circle. The Inner Circle picks up the win here in a Minneapolis street fight. They went nearly 20 minutes on this one. This match had tag rules in it. It's a street fight with tag rules. This was the most WWE thing I've seen on an AEW show in a long time in that sense.
You know, I got why they made it a street fight. 3 of the 10 people in the match are not wrestlers, and 1 isn't really even an active athlete anymore. This just felt like a mistake all the way around. Like, I get why you want to bring Dan Lambert in. I get why you want the attention of, hey, we've got former heavyweight champions from UFC coming in here and putting on matches. We got Jorge Masvidal, who is legitimately one of the hottest acts in UFC right now, coming in, knocking Chris Jericho out with a knee strike. Kind of surprised he didn't make any sort of appearance tonight, but I know he's hurt. But anyway, this could have been shorter. This could have not been on the card. This could have been cinematic. This did not have to be what it was. People are looking at Proud and Powerful right now saying, can you please get away from this so we can get you and the Luchas? They're looking at Sammy going, hey, can you just go be TNT champion?
Well, he's got Jay Lethal, which is freaking wild.
Which is a hell of a thing, but it kind of sucks that for the last month or so, he's gone from, hey, I'm the dude that beat Miro, and then had to turn around and beat Bobby Fish. And now I'm like maybe 4th most important person in the ring right now. And that kind of sucks.
Yeah. What do you think, Lauren?
Sucks like this match, in my opinion.
You thought this match sucked? Really?
No. It didn't suck. Nothing on this card sucked. I didn't care about that. But if we're ranking them, this was not one that was fun or exciting for me. They tried something interesting with that submission tower. John, what did that look like in person?
Oh, that was cool. That was cool. I thought that came across well.
Okay, good. It was a little weird for me. But as you said, it was cool. All kinds of props. And we already had, the thumbtacks and all this other nonsense in a previous match tonight. I really didn't need the kendo stick and the ladder, and the ladder spot was cool though. I'll say that. But we got a stapler to the nut sack. Like it was a little bit too much for me. And then we bring in the real weapon, Baron von Raschke.
That was cool. Fun. That was fun. And Ethan Page was losing his mind taking that. So I guess I'm in the minority here. I actually enjoyed this match more than I was expecting to. I definitely had some weapon fatigue, as I mentioned earlier here. But at the same time, I thought it overperformed. I thought Junior Dos Santos looked really good. Andre, not so much. I didn't think he looked all that great, but Dos Santos was able to show off his athleticism, and I thought that was cool. Dan Lambert played swarmy heel. He did not pin Chris Jericho, Lauren. I hate to break your heart on that one, as you were predicting that he would actually pin Chris Jericho. I was really surprised they did not have him tap out, that they would not have him tap out Dan Lambert, because I think there's money in the visual of him struggling and tapping, but doing the Eddie Guerrero frog splash, no one's ever going to complain about that. I just thought maybe they oversaturated the Eddie tributes a little too much on the show. There was one in almost every single match in some capacity, and I was like, that's cool, but okay. The seventh time, it doesn't mean quite as much.
I think it was very, very intentional with it even being in Minneapolis.
Right.
They had to do that.
Yeah. So this match overperformed for me, but is it a match I'm going to go back and watch again? No, it's not. A match I will go back and watch again. Our main event. Hangman Adam Page defeats Kenny Omega in 25 minutes and 35 seconds to become the new AEW World Champion. I have a lot to say about this match, but I want you guys to break up my soliloquy here. So let's go with Lauren here. This was the big crowning of the champion moment, this long-term story being paid off. What'd you think of it?
It was, oh man, it was good. It was emotional. I know you missed this part, John, but the announcers played a part in this one for me too. This was solid, and the payoff, as we had discussed the other night, the build to this has been so long and so steady and just great storytelling. I feel like there were so many nuanced moments throughout the match that tied everything together. I'm going to let you get into all of those details.
No, it's okay.
This was a really fulfilling match for me. I enjoyed it so much. I enjoyed the "is that all you've got" line early in the match. I enjoyed the sentimental moment at the end with the Dark Order. This was all good things, and I'm going to be really crazy for just a minute, John. But after we had talked about this, and we had both agreed, obviously, that the title was going to change and go to Adam Page, I started thinking, what if it doesn't? What if Omega retains, and then when they're in his hometown or his home state, that's when Hangman wins the title? So I was hoping to maybe see something crazy, something totally unexpected. That didn't happen, but this was a perfect match in my opinion.
Connor, if this is just my take, if they did not put the title on Hangman Page here, it would have been the biggest misstep in AEW history. So while I like your idea for heat, Lauren, because you are our heel here on ad-free shows, I don't know if that would have come off very well.
No, it would have been terrible. But here's the thing. There were so many people on social media saying this is a done deal. Of course, we're going to watch the match because we're looking forward to the match, but we already know how it's going to end. And I thought to myself, Tony Khan is just crazy enough to switch this one around on us and then still make it right in just a few days in Virginia.
Predictable, Connor, isn't always bad.
No, and Tony Khan is crazy, but he is also smart enough to remember Starrcade 97 and know that when you screw around with a finish, to a certain degree, you take the biggest story your company has ever had and you flush it down the toilet. And then you see a result that where people go, you know what, that was just a mistake. And then we spend decades talking about whether or not the referee fast counted on purpose. Whereas if you had just done the match straight up, it's talked about as the end of one of the greatest storylines of all time. So they learned from that mistake. They did not screw with this one too heavy. There was a ref bump. There was some Don Callis shenanigans, but this was everything I could have hoped for. This was Hangman enduring the absolute worst of Kenny's offense and surviving. There was no one-winged angel nailed on Kenny's point. There was on Hangman's. And I like that it didn't. I like that it didn't get the pin. Because and then the commentary team immediately pointed out, I think this was I don't remember if it was Shivani or Ross, but somebody pointed out that it was Excalibur, that when Kenny hits the move, it's the most devastating move in wrestling. When anybody else does, it doesn't quite get there. I love that little touch. It's like when Okada does the Rainmaker. Anybody can hit a lariat, but when he hits that spinning lariat, then you're good. Then you're golden. The spot where he gets up and says, "Is that the best you got, MFer?" I felt that the electricity just surged through the crowd as that went up. Like I stood up when he did that. I went, "Oh dang, we're here and this is live. Let's go." The last bit with Matt, who really of anyone in the Elite was the harshest critic of Hangman throughout this entire 5-year story. And then he doesn't say anything. He doesn't try to hit him. He just nods. He's like, I accept what's about to happen here. I accept you. I acknowledge what you have endured and what you've gone through and come out on the other side. And that was just a beautiful moment. And then to celebrate with the Dark Order, not with the faction that he found, but just the friends that supported him. We see these long, and John, I see you waiting for the soliloquy to come, but I'm going to hold you off just a little bit longer. You see the monologues people have written online on Reddit and YouTube and Twitter, where they just go through all this bit, and then they get to the part with the Dark Order, and you're just like, it was never about him needing to find a home. It was just anyone who would support him. And it's like that kind of depth in storytelling you don't see in wrestling pretty much ever. And the last thing I'll note, and Lauren, this is not an attack on you. This is just people that I've seen talking about this. They need the heat. They needed to keep this thing going. That felt like people that had just been whacked over the head by booking from another company who seemed to value heat and prolonging a story over giving a satisfying conclusion. And when you've been whipped into thinking that this is how things are supposed to be done, and then the right way comes along and presents itself, and you don't know what to do with yourself, you go, gee, maybe the other guys have just been doing it wrong for 20 years.
Well, gee, Connor, is that all you've got? I do absolutely love the heat, sometimes at the expense of the satisfaction. John, what did you think about it?
Such a heel. Look at you. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
You love it.
Man, I could have cried watching this main event. And not because it was great pro wrestling, which it was great pro wrestling. It was everything that you could possibly want in storytelling across any medium, whether it's theater, pro wrestling, a movie, an album, a music album. When you have those nuanced layers that you're talking about, where every little thing connects to each other over a period of time. I said this before the show. I will say it all the time. There is no more gratifying feeling as a pro wrestling fan when you are rewarded for paying attention. And there are people who came onto this story only in the last few months and they got their reward for paying attention. There are people who have been watching this story since the beginning of AEW and they got rewarded for paying attention. There are people who've been following Hangman Page's career since joining Bullet Club and they got the real payoff here of that moment of seeing a guy that you invest with, a guy that you become emphatically empathetic with, a guy that you become compassionate for. That's Hangman Adam Page. And Hangman Adam Page's journey, his story, is reflective of the story that all of us have been through if we've ever faced adversity in our lives. We have a hurdle that we can't clear, and we start to lie to ourselves. I can clear this hurdle, even if maybe we feel that we can't. I do have people around me that support me, even sometimes when it feels like we don't. And finding that confidence to actually tangibly believe in yourself to the point that you do accomplish what you've set out to do. It's what all of us want in life. We all want to feel fulfilled. It's the last line of Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. Someday, girl, I don't know when we're going to get to that place we really want to go. That's the Hangman Adam Page story. And you combine that with the absolutely generational talent that is Kenny Omega, who was New Japan Kenny Omega in this match, the best bout machine, the storyteller, the Terminator. He was perfect in this match. He gave everything to Hangman Page. And then Connor, as you said, and I tweeted about this after Rampage, the segment that they do, and I knew this was going to play into the finish of the match immediately when they did this on Rampage, when Hangman Page went up to the Bucks and said, if you guys get in this match, we're even, but if you interfere with this match, I'll kill you. So they come out and they don't interfere, but they're there to witness and give the approval that you got to do what you got to do. Dude, this was chef's kiss as far as pro wrestling goes. And I'm sure there's going to be people, Lauren, who are going to be like, oh, John, just sucking up, kissing Tony Khan's ass, all this stuff. I mean, we all know it, but I can't think of many more moments that I've been so fulfilled as someone who is by trade someone who pays attention closely to pro wrestling. This is everything you could want. Everything you could want.
All that was missing was an AC/DC reference, and that was
it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, Connor.
There it is.
No, but it's true. I mean, and did Hangman Page's promo after the match air on pay-per-view, or was that just?
It did not, and I was surprised no one was recording it. Like a couple people shot out quotes, but I didn't see any footage.
I recapped it. Basically, I could pull it up, but he said that he's been lying to himself. He's been lying to himself constantly. And he was even lying to himself, thinking he could win the championship, but he was going to tell one more lie to himself. And it was that he's going to hold that championship forever. And I thought that was so real and perfect. And like AEW, to their credit, has allowed talent to be vulnerable with mental health. They've allowed talent to show that side of them. And pro wrestling is such a machismo business sometimes that doesn't always happen, Lauren. It's just like, the vulnerability is almost welcoming, right?
Definitely. I think so many of the viewing audience can easily relate to this character in this story. And to see him hold up that world title felt like we all held it up with him. So, and then of course we see the Dark Order and everybody. This is great. Such a great moment. Such a really good culmination of so many things. And I wonder what's next for Kenny Omega. John, have you thought that far?
Well, like I said on our prediction show, I thought that this show would be the beginning of the downfall of the Elite. And the Super Click lost. Kenny Omega lost. And the Bucks were there front row to see him lose. So this feels like the natural progression with the story here is that this is the beginning of the end of the Elite in AEW. Connor, how do you feel about that?
The beauty of this company is that there are so many times where I can't tell you where they're going to go next with something. You know, with the other one, it's fairly obvious. Like, okay, what's the next angle? Is this one going to go for another pay-per-view? Who's ready to kind of step into that main event scene? Coming out of this, I mean, obviously you've got Hangman Bryan, but if you tried to ask me to pick the next 6 months worth of opponents for Hangman, I couldn't do it. I could name you some great names, but I couldn't guarantee any of them. With Kenny, there's a boatload of possibilities. There is the dissolvement of the Elite. Does Adam Cole try to usurp Kenny, a la Kenny over Styles and Styles over Finn? And we're tracing this all the way back into the earliest days of Bullet Club. Speaking of Bullet Club, we've still got that little dangling carrot, kind of happening off to the sidelines. And if you watch Impact, it's still spilling out over there. Are we going to get that Elite versus Bullet Club kind of, gang war at some point? Do we get, and more people from Chaos are showing up and we keep mentioning them.
I mean, come on.
We get Okada.
I almost asked about it in the press conference, but I knew there was no way I was going to get an answer on it, so I didn't waste my time. But
Omega Okada 5 is just dangling there.
It's the biggest match that AEW can do. It's the biggest match AEW can do, period.
I don't know if you saw this, but there was a guy in the front row who was putting up some pretty cutting signs throughout the night. A lot of them started spreading around on Twitter. But he held up one right as Kenny was getting to the ring, and it was, "What would Coda think?" Mm-hmm. And Kenny looks at it and he just kind of gives a look of disappointment. You're just like, shoot, we really got to get back to that at some point. So there's 1,000
and then they've also teased here, Kyle O'Reilly's got to be coming in, especially with Von Wagner being called up to SmackDown. Kyle O'Reilly has to be coming in. So you've got the whole...
And then we've got the unquestionable time period, or whatever they wind up calling it. You've got Mount Rushmore, because Big KO it could be on his way soon. I've pitched an idea where it's Undisputed Era versus Mount Rushmore, but Adam Cole has to tag in for both teams.
Yes.
He's the X-Pac of this equation.
That might be a little hard, but yeah,
it might be.
Man, I just thought this was so great. And Lauren, I got to give a shout out to Top Guy Lopez. Who, did you see his sign?
I'm sure I did. Remind me.
I'll pull it up here on my phone. I don't know how well you guys will be able to see it, but
Lopez was in Minneapolis this weekend. I think he had a great time. Tagged all of us in a bunch of tweets.
He brought this sign that said "This match is award winning,"
yes.
and had it hard cam. So that was big ups. Got to meet James, another Top Guy. It's so much fun. this week. And so much fun covering the show with you guys. I had an absolute blast here talking about it. Anything else you guys want to add here about Full Gear or the Fallout or Danielson and Page or anything like that? Connor, any thoughts?
Just that it was not a perfect show, but when it had to shine, it absolutely did. And for that, I walk away very happy and very confident about what they're going to do for the rest of this year and whatever the hell they've got planned for 2022.
What do you think, Lauren?
That is probably the best way to say it. I do want to add, though, for our ad-free shows members and those who are not, if you are an AEW fan, then you will want to join me this coming week on Tuesday when I get to sit down with the Enforcer, Arn Anderson, and talk to him about Cody. Just kidding. You'll be able to join along if you are a Top Guide member with ad-free shows. And then later on Friday, I'll be joined by Jim Ross to ask him.
I'm jealous.
I know. So all of this is coming up this week. So get your upgrade on. If you're not a member of ad-free shows, you're missing out on tons of great content. We don't just talk about AEW, although it's fun, so why not? But come and join us. We're doing great things with icons of wrestling all the time. So come along, join the fun.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm so jealous that you get to do all that stuff. I got some cool things coming up too. Don't worry. I'll be able to I can't one up you, Lauren, but I'll certainly try. I just want to say I thought there was an amazing juxtaposition here, Connor, especially that when you and I were at All Out backstage in the press conference, and that night the press conference was all about these big new names that came in from elsewhere and were helping tell the story there. This night was all about the crowning of a homemade star. And that just two total different scenarios from the same company in a 2-month span. I thought that was really cool. And it was a really interesting juxtaposition. And I'm very excited about where things are going on that front. Connor, thank you so much for joining Lauren and I here. You want to plug your stuff with comicbook.com?
Got it. Yeah, over at comicbook.com, I cover all things professional wrestling. You can find my stuff over there in the WWE section. Also, follow me on Twitter at ConnorKCCB. I've got a goal, guys. I've already got the blue check mark, but I'm trying to go for 2,000 followers between now and the end of the year. I'm sitting at about 1760 right now.
Okay.
So hop on over there, hit that follow button. I promise I'll make you laugh at least once. And follow me over on Instagram too, same handle. You can also catch me on the Comic Book Nation podcast. I'm popping up there anytime there's any big wrestling news or any pay-per-views. I was on this past week talking Full Gear, and the week prior talking about all those darn releases. But that streams on Twitch on Fridays at, I believe, noon Eastern. And you can always find it anywhere you can find any good podcasts.
Well, we appreciate you contributing to ad-free shows here as well. Make sure you subscribe adfreeshows.com. You get all that stuff that Lauren was talking about, plus so much more every single week. It's wild how much you get on ad-free shows. And subscribe on YouTube, AFS on YouTube.com. This has been our AEW Full Gear review show. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Later.